שם.
Thank you so much. I'm going to speak on behalf of Julia Loeb, our Women's League for Conservative Judaism president, who expected to be here and share her words of welcome. Unfortunately, she isn't able to Zoom with us. She is supporting a family in her community that lost a loved one and is attending the funeral. Shalom. As president of Women's League for Conservative Judaism, it's an honor to extend greetings to you at this deeply important and meaningful program. Together, as part of the Brooklyn, Queens, Long Island region, and in partnership with your sister Kehillah, I know that you are united in both sorrow and solidarity. At this time, when the heartbreak of war weighs so heavily upon us, we are gathering to express collective anguish over the ongoing hostage crisis. Our hearts ache for the families enduring unimaginable pain, and we share in their hope, their fear, and their prayers for the safe return of their loved ones. As an organization, we stand firmly with our brothers and sisters in Israel. We feel their pain as if it were our own, and our support is unwavering. To my Israeli sisters here today, please know that Women's League and our entire community care deeply about you and stand with you in this difficult time. This program today is an opportunity to not only acknowledge the heartbreak, but also to affirm the strength of our shared bonds. In times like these, our community becomes a source of comfort and a reminder that even in the darkest moments, we are not alone. Our faith, our commitment to one another, and our belief in peace and justice remains strong. Let us join our voices and our hearts, offering comfort and support to those in need. May our prayers bring strength to the hostages, courage to their families, and peace to all of those impacted by this tragedy. and may we continue to stand together and hope for brighter days. Baracha. Thank you so much for Julia for sharing those words. I'd like to welcome Diane Freegut, our Women's League for Conservative Judaism Israel liaison, who will share a few words.
Me? Yes. Okay. So Israel has always been on the agenda of Women's League programming from its more than 50 years ago. But about 25 years ago, Women's League, under the presidency of Janet Tobin, who's with us today, she initiated a education project, which probably many of you know, called the Women's Masorti Study Day. Women's League is the major sponsor, along with Schechter and with the help of the Masorti movement, of this study day that's putting on 4 seminars a year, gathering hundreds of women from all over Israel and from the States and Canada and 10 other countries. Main goal behind all of this, beyond education and trying to be aware of each other's similarities and common bonds, we have tried over the years to find ways to connect. And until the advent of Zoom, we were really not too effective. With Zoom, and this program is a good example, we can really talk to each other and address problems and just feel that we are connected and help each other in many ways. So I'd like to just acknowledge, as I say, Janet Tobin is here. She's right now in Ra'anana, but she is Brooklyn, Queens, Long Island region, and past president of Women's League, and Ann Greenbaum, who's with us from Atlanta, Georgia, who is the current U.S. Women's League chair, who I work with now on Israel programming. And Terry, thank you very much for this opportunity. And I look forward to hearing great stuff of developing bonds between Mayanot and Brooklyn, Queens, Long Island region.
Thank you so much, Diane, for your words and for your time, and also for introducing Anne, which I was going to do next. So I thank any other Women's League for Conservative Judaism executive committee or board of directors or members from other regions for joining us today. And I especially want to remark and thank Barbara Kaplan, our BQLI immediate past president, current BQLI Torah Fund vice president, and all the members of the BQLI executive committee and board of directors, especially Deborah Weil, our BQLI region education and engagement VP, and Fran Rothstein, our BQLI region Israel Affairs and Advocacy chairs. Here's some words from me. Sometimes it feels like the world would have us believe we are alone. We are not alone. Our Brooklyn, Queens, Long Island region is made up of 36 conservative synagogues affiliates, made up of over 2,300 women from Brooklyn to Port Jefferson. We are one of 13 Women's League for Conservative Judaism regions, made up of over 40,000 women in over 300 synagogues in North America, from Canada to Mexico and New York to California. Women's League of Conservative Judaism, of which our BQLI region is a proud member, is women from all walks of life, little sisters under 25 to those whose grandchildren are getting married and having children themselves. We are committed to being educated, involved, and learned Jewish women. We want to help you to know that we are here for you both in tangible and in intangible ways. We hope to learn how we can assist you and your community of Israel to feel encouraged, supported, and championed. We think of you every day. Later on in the program, you will hear what some of our sisterhood affiliates and their synagogue communities are continuing to do to keep you in our hearts, our minds, our vision, our actions, and our prayers since October 7th. We are not alone. We stand with you. We stand with Israel. I'd like to let you know that if you have any questions throughout the program, Grace Jessler will be monitoring our chat, and you can just include them in the chat, and we will afford some time at the end of the program to answer those questions. At this time, I'd like to introduce Kehillah Ship to our BQLI region. It has been really nice getting to know her. Kehillah was born and raised in Boston in the conservative movement. She made Aliyah in 1997 and was born and raised and became a licensed Israeli tour guide in 1989. Since 2000, she has been one of the directors of Keshet Educational Journeys. A few years ago, Kehillah switched from the Masorti congregation of Moreshet Yisrael to Mayanot and is now on the Mayanot Va'ad, or board. Thank you, Kehillah.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I'm just going to give a little very quick background to our Kehillah, our community of Mayanot, because I don't want to, it's much more interesting to hear from Rina, Lisa, and Avital. So Mayanot is located in Arnona Hatzira, or Talpiot. It's near Der Hebron. I'm actually in, can put a little map here in the chat. And that way people can look it up if you want. Hold on 1 second. Where is it? Oh, am I having a problem with this? Which I didn't before. Sorry, this was all set up a minute ago.
Talking, Kehillah, and you can put it up while we talk.
There we go. Okay, so you can now look at it. Sorry about that. We are about 90 households, family membership households, which can be singles, couples, as well as families with children and some with grandchildren. And we are affiliated with the Masorti conservative movement in Israel. We meet in a matnas, which is a community center, so we don't actually have our own building. And we have many rabbis, but not a single rabbi. We are very lay-led, and it is a very well-educated and committed community. So we're blessed with so many wonderful people who can lead us in tefillah, whether it's on Shabbat or for all the different chagim. Friday nights, we usually have, 15 to 20 people, and Shabbat morning, 80 plus, always with a great kiddush at the end that, again, is we have a rotation from the community for taking care of that. We also have weekly study on Shabbat, and also once a month we have outside speakers come in after Shabbat services, and other programming throughout the year as well. After October 7th, we actually were meeting on a weekly and then bi-weekly basis for a few months because the community, we just needed each other. And we would meet together at someone's home, have daven together, and then split up into smaller groups, which were led actually by people on this panel, Rina and Lisa, whether it was art or meditation or text study or music, just a way for us to be together and help process what we're all going through, which was, as you can imagine, incredibly difficult and dramatic. And that's just about Mayanot. We are a mixed, so we say mixed because we're native Israeli and Anglos and some French and from other places as well. Our services are pretty much all in Hebrew, but we've started to include a parallel English Dvar Torah, some Shabbatot, and during the high holidays. And would love, if you're in Israel and in Jerusalem at some time, to please come join us for Shabbat and for a meal. We'd love to host you, and whether that's as individuals or as your synagogue community, we would love to see you in Jerusalem. Bashana haba'ah. And without any further ado, though, I'd like to start our program. And our first speaker will be Rina Bannett, and she is going to share her personal story of what her family has been going through since October 7th, as well as some of her own art, which is her as well delving into in dealing with the subject of October 7th. She's prepared a PowerPoint, so I'm going to share my screen, but Rina, you can start talking while I get the PowerPoint going.
Good morning to you. Good afternoon to everyone who's in Israel. I'm speaking from Jerusalem. And yes, it's a beautiful day in Jerusalem. It's cool and it rained today. Just so you know, before I start, I am a mother of 4 and a grandmother of 17, 13 of whom currently live in Israel. And we have one on the way. So it's a pretty exciting family I live in, and that's just my own children. But I'm here today to share my tiny piece of a very large story. On October 7th, 2023, I had just awakened and was getting ready for shul when I heard the first siren and went into my, yeah, there you go. I'll tell you when I want to go to the next slide. Thank you so much, Kehillah, for being such a good helper there. When I heard the first siren, I went into my art studio, which is in my safe room. I pulled the metal shutter of the window closed and I remained there for a good chunk of the day. And that evening after Havdalah and I had read the news, I called my younger sister, who I knew had sons living in Kibbutz Cholit, which is a kilometer from the southern part of Gaza. And I really hope never to ever hear screams again like those of my sister, as she shared that Kehillah, now you can go to the first slide, the love of her son Ahuvia, was murdered in her home as she sat talking on her computer with her parents, and that her daughter-in-law, Adi Vital Kaplun, was missing with her 2 sons. Next slide. 4-year-old Negev and 4-month-old Eshel. It was 8 hours till we found out that Negev and Eshel had been forced on Adi's neighbor and friend Avital and taken to the border of Gaza, where she was inexplicably and miraculously released with them. And they were able to make their way back. Although it was fraught, they didn't meet, but they saw several other groups of terrorists who they were able to hide from, and they made it back without being hurt further. And then it took several nightmarish days for them to determine that Adi was not kidnapped, which we thought she was, but that she was among the murdered. And when they found her body, it had been left booby-trapped in their safe room. She, Adi, was a real heroine as a mother as well. She was a wonderful woman. Had managed to kill one of her attackers before they murdered her. These are 2 of the many, many lives that were cut short. 2 of the families that will never be the same, and the world will never know what else was not achieved because these 2 brilliant, beautiful women, among so many other people, didn't get to live out their potential. Yehi zichram baruch. On that day, most of my nephews and my son-in-law were called up to Miluim, and they were in different places and doing different things. My niece, Talia Tomer Schlesinger, a community artist whose husband Yair left that morning and first cousin and close friend of Adi and Anani, recounts stories of morbid conversations at the table among her kids about how Abba went to find Adi, or that Imas and Abbas can die. And these conversations and others led her to look for a book on Miluim and didn't find one. So she consulted with other parents and psychologists and wrote a book to help parents and kids have conversations around this war. We can do the next slide now. In the short span of 1 month, this is Talia and Daniela. Daniela was the illustrator, and Talia, who is she's a community artist. Did I say that already? Yes. So the 2 of them got together and wrote this book with the input from many, many of us all around the country. And in the short span of 1 month, she crowdfunded enough money to write, print, and distribute the first 500 copies of the book Mishpacha B'Miluim with no charge to any family of reservists with kids under age 12. Much can be said of this book, the thoughtfulness of its design and writing, as well as the extraordinary multi-communal efforts that brought about its creation and its distribution. Here on this next page, on this next slide, you can see the book itself, and I can show it to you here if you want to also, but it's there. And the YouTube, there is a link to the English reading that I will put in the chat as well, so that you guys can go there afterwards and listen. The English reading is read in my granddaughter, one of my granddaughters is reading the English, and Talia's daughter is reading the Hebrew, which I will also send you for any of you who want to listen to it in Hebrew. I can personally attest to how really useful and wonderful this book was in helping us all cope. As my granddaughters read it again and again with my daughter, with their mom, with my daughter, their mom, with me, and after which my granddaughter read it to the little ones and to her dad on FaceTime at his army base, and he just responded and says, "Oh, that sounds just like me." It was really great. The middle one, my middle granddaughter in that particular family, slept with it under her pillow for most of the time her dad was away. She needed that extra comfort. Talia printed and distributed a whopping 24,000 copies without charge to anyone. And with thoughts of further fundraising, she asked my daughter Lonnie and I to translate it into English, which we did. That's how you've got the English copy. But in the end, that was moved to a back burner as far as the fundraising for it went. Their next project, they continued their work on a book called Families Without a Home, Mishpacha Bli Bayit. I think that's the next slide. And these are just some of the initiatives that are part of the amazing volunteerism, brilliance, and resiliency that is so characteristic of this extraordinary country in which we are graced to live. Finally, I want to share, well, actually, lastly, because it's not my final, lastly, I will share some of my own personal creations since the onset of this war. Some artists found themselves galvanized to create, and I did find myself somewhat jealous of seeing some of the things that came out of people when I was one of the ones who was more frozen in place and somewhat unable to function. I was good at helping my daughter with her kids, and I was good at helping my niece and my sisters, but I just couldn't do any art. But as you know, or may not know, because it doesn't say it on my screen, I live in Jerusalem, in which we had sirens on October 7th, and then we had another one during the week after October 7th. Now, October 7th was Shabbat and Simchat Torah. As a religious Jew, I was sitting and just reading in my safe room. But during the week, when we had a siren, I went in and I remembered that I was in my art room as well as my safe room. And I started tearing up pieces of paper and gluing them on and working on nothing, at least nothing that needed my head. There was no thought. It was just an activity to pass the time. And if you go to the next slide, you can see one of the pieces that I made. This was the first one. I call it Art from My Safe Room, and there's more than 2 of them, but I'm only showing you 2. The work was very absorbing, and it was so absorbing that I passed about 2 hours in my safe room before I remembered that it was okay to open the door. We only need to stay there for 10 minutes after the siren ends. But I was in there for 2 hours with the door closed, just pasting away, happy in my little zone. And collaging and pen doodling were things that I could do with to keep my art making muscles moving, but I didn't need to really think, because my mind, as was my heart, was totally preoccupied with the enormous losses in people and security, and grappling with hope and despair and the needs of my kids and my grandkids and my mother and everyone else here in Israel, and worrying about my family overseas too and what was coming up there. There's another piece here that you can see that was also a collage. So if you add the next one as well. This one was, by this time, this was in early 2024. I started being able to listen to the birds singing, and we have these green parrots that live around us, and they were making such a racket in the tree across the way that engendered this piece, which has them hiding among the falling colored leaves. So this is the second piece that I made also with collage, which just stands me in good stead. And the last piece that I will share is based on the number written in masking tape that I wear every day. After Rachel Goldberg-Polin asked us for our help on day 100 in shouldering the burden of remembering and fighting for the return of our loved ones from captivity. My youngest grandchildren know that this is the number of days since Abba began Miluim, and the older ones know it is the days since the war began, and others know it is the time since their beloved cousins Adi and Kehillah were murdered. I know that it is all these, and also the amount of days our beloved people, stolen from their lives and their loved ones, are being held against their wills, in condition that were they dogs or cats, animal rights protesters would be storming the gates of capital cities worldwide to free them. But because they're only Jews, they're being ignored and denied by so many, while others remain silent. Shockingly still, even here, people ask me about the number and what it means. And when I quietly remind them, they're so often unbelieving at the sheer magnitude. Today, we are at day 352. Each night, I remove the number from my shirt and stick it on the frame of my clothes closet, feeling unable to throw them away. as though, like the leftover wicks of the Hanukkah candles, they have some intrinsic holiness in this battle that keeps me from cavalierly tossing them. I'm still working on what I think that value is, but here is an unfinished piece that I'm working on, trying to accommodate some of the feelings that they engender in our lives. The reason I call it unfinished is because, unfortunately, we're still counting. This is 300 plus days. Thank you for listening. And I don't know if we have time for questions, but thank you very much for having me here today.
Kehillah, I think we'll do the
Yes.
questions at the end of the program.
I think we'll do questions at the end. Yes.
Perfect.
Thank you, Rena, so much.
Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker up is Lisa Kanan, who will be speaking about what it is like to have close family members serving in the Army, but she also comes from a psychological background. So, so she's maybe do it on two levels, the personal level, but then also more on the sociological communal level. So Lisa,
Well,
you're.
I'll try, Kehillah, but I didn't prepare anything in advance, and I'm still sort of trying to digest what Rena. I think this is the first time I've heard Rena's story in its entirety like that. So so I'll try. So I made Aliyah from New Jersey in 1991, just as the Gulf War was. I was sort of in the middle, and to come to Israel, not to come to Israel, but my fiance was here, so of course I came. And, he promised me, okay, that'll be the last war, we're done. So, obviously in Jerusalem, we brought up our kids with all sorts of challenges through intifadas and wars. And I remember my daughter bringing her gas mask to first grade, and, my son having weapons in the playroom of the gun, and really just bringing up our children into that reality. And now since October 7th, we're in a different reality, and I'll just tell you a little bit about, what it's like for me as a mom. On October 7th, I was a very happy mom in the morning. All my kids were here, my 3 kids and my son-in-law, and they were all asleep. We were all asleep, obviously, at whatever, 6, 7, 8 in the morning when we started hearing sirens. And it took me a minute to what am I hearing? What does it mean? Okay, what do I do? And my kids are great. They're like, Mom, slowly, don't run. You might fall. I'm like, okay, thanks. And we all ran downstairs to our basement, got to know our neighbors in our pajamas and half dressed. But we've had plenty of sirens in the past. It didn't really register what was happening. For a while, they started, they got out their phones, and we started getting the updates, and we started hearing what was happening. And so my kids are all out of the Army. They're done. My daughter is 30, my son-in-law is 31, my son is 28, and my daughter is 23. So we've been done with it for a while. We survived all those Army periods. But on October 7th, on that day, they started getting the news from their commanders and from their friends, and from it's just really overwhelming from all sources. Also, my husband, I don't know if he's still there, where it says Musad Bialik, my husband Zeev, is from Kibbutz Sa'ad in the south, on the border. And I started getting, I started seeing messages. I didn't really know. Should I be looking at my phone like it's Chag, it's Shabbat, but obviously, emergencies above all. So we started getting from all sorts of sources what was going on. And then one by one that day, all my kids were like, okay, gotta go, my son is like, oh, gotta grab everything. And of course, nothing was washed and ready. And my daughter served in the unit of IDF spokesperson's unit. So she was she needs to come back now and start being ready to translate, being ready to work. At the same time, she was starting to hear, when we started getting messages about their friends who were at Nova, and has anybody seen, and does anybody know what happened to? And of course, they're all at that age where everybody knows somebody who was there. Classmates, friends. So it was all very overwhelming emotionally and logistically. Since that, my daughter just this week, just finished 11 months of reserve duty straight. She finished, and really what was keeping her, I think, this whole time was knowing that what she's doing is so important, and on a very personal, immediate level. Hirsch was a friend of hers from her gap year program, and so, like all of us in Israel, all Jews, all anybody who's knows that name, of course, and for her it was a personal friend. So that was really one of many that kept her, this is why we're doing it. And the same with my son-in-law, who's a tank commander, and my son, who's in the Nahal unit. Both boys have been in Gaza now 3 times, and we hope that that's the end. But now we're, asking who's going up north and when. But really, since that day, that's been what it's like to be a mom. When they do come home, I get to spoil them with treats and, make sure that they have food and sandwiches, because what else can I do? I have to say, like, as a mom, I'm just sort of like, don't tell me things I don't want to know. Tell your Abba, who understands all the details, the Hebrew units and all that. But of course, I need to be there for them. And as a school psychologist, it's, I have lots of skills to offer in terms of listening and mediating, but I'm not sure that as a mom I can really necessarily take those skills. So for me, it's been, on both levels. I have to say, being a school psychologist has been the most wonderful way for me to deal with all that's going on and to make some sense of it, is that every day I get to talk about resilience, and I get to go to school and be with children who, even though we're having, obviously you can't even imagine the tragedy, but they're still children, and we still play, and we still are allowed to have fun, and we encourage them that you can have mixed feelings. You can feel sad and happy, and you can play, and you can, and that's part of living in Israel. That's part of being human. So my work has been really, I think, very meaningful to me on a personal level, on a community level, trying to figure out how I can get through this time and what I can offer to others. But the togetherness, the solidarity, the being with other people has been the most valuable tool that I can think of when we talk about ways that we cope and learn resilience. One of them, there's a whole 7 things I can when I'm in my teaching mode I can teach about, but community, knowing that we're not alone, as Jews, as Israelis, as human beings, that we're all in this together. You started with the word solidarity and support, and it really means, I think this has been the thing that's been getting us through. And knowing that, like me, there are just so many moms, in our Kehillah, in our country, that are dealing with exactly the same thing as me, some a whole lot worse, of course. And I have to say that I'm a mom to soldiers, but they don't necessarily need me in the same way as they need they need their friends, they need other things, but because they themselves don't have children, it means that they don't have the burden that Rena was talking about, of having to keep themselves in control and be there for their children. So I think that at least we've had the opportunity to be together, but to go through it as a family, but I can't even imagine what it's like for the parents who have to deal with the reserve duty on a whole nother level. When my kids are home, they're allowed to be kids. When my young adults are home, they're allowed to take care of themselves, and that's it. They're allowed to shut off, and they're allowed to compartmentalize, and they're allowed to just take what they need. And it's a very different experience. So that's what we've been going through. We've been dealing it in different ways. As I said, Sev is from the South, and he's been as a tour guide taking some tours now to talk about revival and resilience. He's the son of Holocaust survivors, and growing up next door to Gaza, it's not his first war. He deals with it in his way. And I deal with it in mine, but really we've been a part of the Mayanot community now for more than 30 years. And this is a source of a strength for us and for our children to know that we're not alone, that we're part of this amazing community. That sometimes we're doing things and sometimes we're just being there together. So thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for sharing so much. And if anyone has questions for Lisa, put them in the chat and we'll get to them at the end. And our next speaker up is Avital. So Mayanot does a lot to thank Avital. She was the one who really worked so hard for us to be able to get our space in the Matnas in the community center. And Avital is going to be speaking about a project that Mayanot has been supporting, which is to help evacuees. So she'll explain a little bit about what it is that we were trying to do beyond our own community with the greater Israeli community. So thank you, Avital.
So good morning to you and good afternoon to whoever is in Israel. I just want to relate one moment to what Lisa had said, because I think she maybe didn't stress enough how hard it is to be a mother of a soldier that is fighting in Gaza. It is like, I mean, there are a lot of mothers in Mayanot that had children, including my own, my son-in-law, my son, who just finished today his, I don't know how, 4th time, and this time he was in Gaza. So it is really, really hard. And I remember when we had this gathering during the beginning of the war, and I just asked Lisa, how do you sleep? How do you manage? How do you cope? And she said resilience. And I think she really helped me somehow cope with it, because I personally, it was very, very hard for me to just, not think about what is happening and not worrying 24/7. So 6 days on Friday, just after October 7, we had an announcement on our WhatsApp group on Mayanot. One of our members wrote, my husband, Pilates teacher, she is a volunteer to help the families of the evacuees, and she's trying to buy supplies for them. And whoever wants to help her can transfer money to her account by Bit. So I contact her, and I want to just tell you, like, the first week, that day on Friday, nothing was open apart from pharmacies and grocery shop. Everything was closed. There was no place where you can actually go and buy pajamas or long underwear or sweatshirts. Everything was closed. And she personally, her name is Shani Benkin. She is an amazing person. She was an officer in reserve, but by now she was over 40 and she was already released from reserve. And she, on October 7th, was on the phone with one of her best friends in Kibbutz Be'eri, basically hearing everything that had happened on the phone. And her friends were rescued, but she just felt that she had to do something. She just couldn't sit and do nothing. So she went to Ma'ale HaMisha, where they had 2 communities that were evacuated there, and just started speaking and asking the people, what do you need? Now, everybody in Israel volunteered, we donated clothes, but these people, they just couldn't just go through the clothes and try and find the underwear or slippers or runners or sandals or long shirts for the old people. They didn't have anything to wear. They were evacuated barefoot, barely, just with their pajamas. They had nothing. So I called her and she said, well, I've raised some money, but I just can't find where to buy the things they need. they've asked me for some white shirts for Shabbat, and everything is closed, and I'm just struggling to find a place that would open for me. My expertise, I'm a marketing specialist expertise. My expertise is e-commerce, and I belong to a Facebook group of marketing managers who manage a website for Israel's biggest brands. So I put in a notice and said, is anybody here manages one of the big sites, maybe of the, you know, like similar to Gap, you know, like maybe you can help me open one of the shops to help Shani get the things she needs. And luckily we did manage to get a lot of answers from and I got not just answers, but we also got the CEO calling me and saying, okay, I'll give them 70% discount. And they opened the shop for Shani and the team of volunteers that was already there. And this is just 6 days after the war started. And they went and picked up the white shirts and the underwear and the sweatshirts because they were in Ma'ale HaMasha, which is just on the outskirts of Jerusalem. It was actually already a little bit cool. You know, they came from the south, from the desert, they had nothing to wear. And then after we did that was a Friday, over the Shabbat, I was thinking to myself, how is she? And she said to me, oh, you know, my accountant is already telling me that I cannot just raise all this money to my account. So over the Shabbat, I was thinking, why don't we put up the Mayanot website, and also we have like an online payment system. Why don't we prepare this and enable her to actually raise money for her all her efforts? And very quickly, the board, of course, agreed, and I created the landing pages and all the that needed. And we have an online payment page, a donation page in shekels and in dollars. And very quickly, we started raising money. Everybody wrote to all the friends around the world. We raised money. And all in all, we raised around $75,000, which is quite a lot of money if you translate it to Israelis. It's like around 250,000 shekel. And with this money, Shani just made wonders. And even today, she wanted to join us today, but she's engaged in another miracle that she's creating. But even today, she's still helping families. Initially, she started happily after she was in Ma'ale HaMasha. She went to help all the families of Be'eri in the Dead Sea. They were at the Dead Sea. She bought them, you know, from sandals. They would tell her, I need sandals. My sandals were stolen. I need the slippers. I need the runner. I need the runners because I like to run. And they didn't have the energy to sort through all the clothes and all the donations that people donated to them. They just wanted what they needed. After that, she helped, you know, when the kids came back from captivity, she bought them coats. And all that she did with a lot of buying from everywhere with a lot of discount, because we had by now like, well, not a team, but, you know, she would say, you know, this company gave me 70%. Why don't you give me the discount as well? And it's not easy, almost 1 year from when we started, to still go and ask for discount, but she's still doing it. She's doing an amazing project. Now, for example, she's helping a family create a garden to commemorate their grandmother who was murdered in one of the kibbutzim. She just finished building a garden with a very, very tall fence for a family that were in captivity and came back, but their father is still there and the children are still traumatized. And they cannot really face the world. It's really, really hard to say. They have to live in their bubble. So they created like a haven for them. So she is doing wonders. And we still have this fundraising campaign going on our website, which is mayanot.info.
I actually just put it in the chat.
Okay, so we still really, really hope that people will still remember us in their high holidays campaign. You know, it is something which is very tangible, and she works with the people who needs it most. I know there are a lot of initiatives around Israel, but we really want to still continue and support her. So if you can spread the word, it will be amazing. And that's about it. So I just hope that for me and for Lisa and for all the other mothers and all the other parents, spouses, children, grandparents, that our loved one will not be called again to Miluim, because it is very, very hard doing so much Miluim. My son-in-law just finished 200 days of Miluim since 7th of October. They're all working, and they still need to do Miluim, and it's not, Miluim is reserved. It's just not normal. It's, every time they go, you never know how they'll come back. So that's that.
Thank you, Avital. Thank you so much. Well, that wraps up our section. So if anyone has questions in the chat, whoever's monitoring the chat, I guess you can.
Kehillah, I saw there was a question for me in the chat. Okay.
Okay, take it away, Lisa.
Well, first of all, I just want to add to what Avital just said about the soldiers and the interrupting their lives. Just personally, and I'm sure that every soldier has their own story, but my daughter had to push off her university studies for a year. She actually had to reapply, and she'll be starting school, we hope, this year. My son-in-law is a music producer, and so he lost all his clients, obviously, and every time, he comes back, okay, he's done, but he has no clients and he has to start again. And everybody, whether they're working or in school, and in this cohort is they're the age where they're doing all sorts of things. It's very, very disruptive. So I just wanted to add that, but somebody said, what was it, something about my school children. I work as a school psychologist at about 5 kindergartens and 2 schools in Kehillah in South Jerusalem, which is a fairly low socioeconomic area of Jerusalem. So just like we saw when it was COVID, strong families have tools, and weak families, it's that much harder. So the same thing now. The war, unfortunately, is disproportionately difficult for those families who don't have the extra resources. And so in school, we try and do what we can to help parents, to help kids, to help teachers. So many of the teachers we have are, their husbands or they themselves are on reserves. Every time we have to help mediate the news, we have some parents who say, oh no, I didn't tell my kids anything. But then of course they go back to school and they hear everything. And we say, but you need to be there, and you need to help your kids cope with the situation. We had so much we still have so much emotional regression and social regression. So, I mean, I do the best I can to help those around me do their work. But for example, even something small. We did a Zoom for all the kids while they were at home, and we taught them a breathing technique that they can use when things are rough. We call it sipping the hot chocolate. Smell the hot chocolate, sip on it, breathe out. Just little things, and letting their parents know that that's something that they can do, and you can remind them how to do it, and you can all do it together. It's just one little technique to help them deal with this incredible, unfathomable experience they all go through, whether the little ones in Ghana or the older ones who are already in 5th, 6th grade and who unfortunately have watched TV and have nightmares about everything they've seen, and to help their parents and to help their teachers. And I work in a normative school with normative kids, and trying to figure out how to bring these much needed mental health resources to basically all of Israel right now has been a challenge for those of us in the public field. So I think that was the question.
Thank you, Lisa.
Hey, Terry.
I see Terry put in a question about our Golda's ice cream for the soldiers. Yes, so my note has been trying to support our family members who do have their loved ones called up. So it's been bringing sometimes before Shabbat cookies and cakes that some of the kids in the community have written notes to. We got a donation from a synagogue, so we're able to buy vouchers for food, and we gave that to some of the families so that they just wouldn't have to cook a meal. You know, it's hard when your spouse is called up and you're home with 2, 3, 4 kids and working. And also we've been getting vouchers for Golda's ice cream, and to be able to give to the soldiers so that when they're on their way to base or back from base or wherever they're going, their Golda's a big chain here of good ice cream, good gelato. So just giving them, a 50 shekel voucher or something so they can get themselves a treat here and there. So we're obviously, we don't have a huge amount of financial resources, but if there's something that one of the synagogues or your synagogue would like to pitch in to help in a very tangible, small, tangible way to make a soldier's or a reserve family's week, that would be wonderful. I'll just put my email in, and if anyone's interested in any more information about any of this, you can contact me and I can put you in touch with the right person at Mayanot who's in charge of these things.
Terry and Diane, it's Janet Tobin. I just wanted to say, Diane, thank you so much for letting me know that this program was being held from my own region. And Terry, I want to thank you for bringing this program to our region. I hope that more people will get on and listen to it and see it because it's been recorded. And I shall certainly tell my friends and sisterhood to get on and listen to the recording. So thank you, Terry, for doing such a beautiful program, and let's do more of them. And Diane, thank you for letting me know this program was on. And so I say thank you, and I'm going to leave now because I'm going to see my grandson, who is home on leave for 2 days. And so I have to get to see him. He's in the IDF with the Gavati unit. So, okay, thanks again, Diane, and thank you again, Terry. And I'll speak to you when I get back to Great Neck.
Thank you, Janet. I so appreciate that. Don't leave yet. You need to leave to see your grandson. That's most important. And I want to thank from the depths of my heart, Rena, Lisa, and Avital for sharing their stories. This is what helps us to understand and how best support you. And now I want to share with you, Janet thanked me for the program, but I introduced Barbara Kaplan before as our immediate past president. She was the person that made the initial contact with Kehillah and helped get the ball rolling for us to do this. So I really owe a debt of gratitude to her. I'd like to introduce now 4 different sisterhood affiliate presidents from our BQLI region who have things to share about what we have been doing since October 7th to keep you and Israel and the hostages and the IDF in our hearts and in our forefront and in the forefront of everyone's minds. So first I'm going to introduce, and it's alphabetical order by the synagogues, which just in a funny way also was alphabetical order by their last names. But I'm going to first introduce the president of the Sisterhood affiliate at East Meadow Bethel Jewish Center, Lori Diamond. Thank you so much.
Hi, thank you so much, Terry. And thank you also for everyone who has made this possible. I was teaching during the pandemic and detested Zoom, but Zoom has wonderful capabilities. And this is an example of Zoom at its best. So like so many Jews living outside of Israel, we were horrified to hear of the events of October 7th. It was Shemini Atzeret going to Simchat Torah. We had engaged in our synagogue, we had engaged a group of a cappella singers, and we're looking forward to festive dancing in the evening and in the morning. And of course, we heard the horrible news. We had so many questions, we wanted to help. Almost immediately after the holiday, our rabbi had a prayer service at our synagogue. We mourned the loss of those who were slaughtered and prayed for the release of the hostages, and just had so many questions about what to do. We just didn't know what to do first. And so the synagogue researched a number of the charities and came up with a fund that they felt represented charities that could do provide the most immediate help. And our sisterhood made a very substantial donation to this fund. Several of our congregants went on personal missions to Israel. One of our members in particular, who I had hoped would be on the Zoom, went on a mission run by the JNF. And I spoke to her yesterday at Kiddush, and she was telling me how she worked in a kibbutz, one of the kibbutzim that, I guess the kibbutz that was affected by in the massacre, worked to repair homes, visited hospitals. And the highlight for her was that a restaurant had been turned into a kitchen for IDF soldiers, and she helped prepare food for them. And that was so wonderful. We, as a sisterhood, we made beaded bracelets. Here's mine, which we sold at a meeting to raise funds for the IDF, which was the mitzvah project of our spring gala. And we donated over $500 to that fund. We had hoped that by now this would be over. Unfortunately, it isn't. This Thursday, a number of us are participating in a fundraiser called Terry's Angels. That may be the same thing going on at Midway at the JCC in Plainview, not sure. But it's a project that was developed by a woman who grew up in our community in North Belmore. She amasses supplies that are needed by the soldiers and stuffs duffel bags with the supplies. We write notes to the soldiers. And then she goes to the airport, goes to the El Al counter, and contacts people who are flying to Israel, and they're able to take the duffel bags with them to Israel. Also, this Thursday night, Thursday's a busy day for us, we have a presentation by Ira Kohler, who is a lone soldier. He grew up in Long Island, I believe in Plainview, and made Aliyah at the age of 21 to serve in the IDF. Ira spent 5 months in Gaza, and he's going to share his experiences. And we continue to pray for a peaceful and speedy end to all the suffering and for the release of the hostages. And thank you so much for all that you do.
Thank you, Lori. And if anyone has any questions about any of the programs, any of the sisterhood presidents mentioned, just put it in the chat and we will share that information with you. I just want to share with you, Ira spoke at my synagogue as well, and his unit of paratroopers were the first on the ground at Kibbutz Be'eri, and I heard someone mention that earlier, so I just wanted to share that with you. Now I'd like to, and thank you, Lori, I'd like to introduce Cheryl Roberts from the North Shore Jewish Center Sisterhood President. Thank you so much, Cheryl.
Thanks, Terry. I'm very happy that you asked me to speak here, even though it's very, very sad to talk about this. Like all the other sisterhoods and every Jew in the country, we just did not know what to do when we heard the news about what was happening in Israel. So basically, I really just put together a list. I'm sure I don't have everything on the list of what we've been doing since last October 7th. So the first thing on my list is it just so happened that Men's Club and Sisterhood were planning what we call Simply Shabbat dinner on Friday night, October 13th. And like as of October 5th, there were like maybe 17 people signed up to come to this, which was fine. You know, we just wanted to make it, whoever shows up, shows up. But then starting October 8th, people just kept inundating me with emails and texts and calling the office and everything. And I called the caterer, who is Woodbury Kosher out in your neighborhood. And I said, you know, Andrew, I'm not turning anybody down. So I'll give you our number on Friday morning before you come to deliver the food. And that's what I did, because everyone just wanted to be in the synagogue together for that first Shabbat. So we probably had over 80, 90 people at the dinner, and then more people for the services. I gave out to everybody that walked in the door a pin of an Israeli flag. So that's the first thing that we did. The second thing we did was we set up a fund, because we have different funds, obviously, where people donate to this, that, and the other thing. This was directly to go to Israel. Another thing, the next thing that we did is, I'm famous for getting groups of people together to make calls. So like we did it during Superstorm Sandy, we did it during the pandemic, and we did it for this also. The rabbi, the executive director, made up a list of all the people who have family in Israel and family or close friends in Israel. And I got a group of people together and we called each of those people. Not that we could really do anything to help them or make them feel better, except let them know that we were thinking about them. And so we called those people every week. At our membership dinner, our sisterhood membership dinner, we had a tzedakah box set up as people checked in that went directly to the IDF. And then all the raffle money that we collected for the raffles at the dinner went to the IDF also. There is a walk every Sunday morning at our local mall. Two of the men's club members are there every week, and they have T-shirts, and they're walking until the hostages and everyone comes home. I wrote it's too small. We also had a bunch of congregants who went and volunteered in Israel, and when they came home, they came to Friday night services and told us everything that went on there and what organizations they went with. This October 6th, we have a remembrance program with a guest speaker, and actually, somebody here, my VP of Israeli Affairs is here. She could tell you more about this, but we have a speaker coming who, she's the granddaughter of one of our beloved cantors that had passed away years ago, and she was a first responder there in Israel. So she's going to come and speak on the evening of October 6th. And then October 7th, we have a presentation of the new Torah mantle, which I'm sure many of your synagogues have done the same thing. You could purchase a Torah mantle and donate money for Israel. And the last thing on the list was that our sisterhood personally, from our allocations that we do every July, we donated $2,500 to go to an organization in Israel. And Mona Goldstein, who's here on the call, she's my VP of Israeli Affairs. She found a good project to donate to. It's called Restart, and it helps physically and emotionally injured soldiers. And that $2,500 went to them. And, you know, we can't do enough. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. I appreciate your time. And evidently, I don't know how to alphabetize because Roberts comes way after the next person who's going to speak, which is Jenny Kahn from Melville Jewish Center Sisterhood. She is the sisterhood president there. Thank you, Jenny.
Good morning. And as Terry said, I belong to the Melville Jewish Center in Huntington, New York. Thanks for asking me to speak. And I really appreciated hearing the very moving stories from our sisters in Israel. First, I'd like to say that in my experience, the Jewish people in the United States and in my synagogue, of course, stand with Israel, and we care so deeply about what happens there. In addition to our religious connection, many of us have very personal ties to Israel. My daughter went to medical school in Tel Aviv and frequently visits. My sister lived there, worked in Israel for many years, and also met her husband there. When I myself visited and got off the plane in Israel, I felt like I was home. It was just inexplicable. So what happens there really affects us as well. Of course, not as much as it affects you, but I want you to know that we are thinking of you and supporting you as much as we can. And we believe that Israel has a right to protect and defend herself. we are loyal, and please know that we're behind you. Recently, the men's club at the synagogue had a golf outing, and one of the purposes was to raise money for the United Hatzalah, a free emergency medical service in Israel, which it provides EMS and ambulance services. It was one of the first responders that played a very important role in the October 7th attack. The sisterhood members also assisted with this event, and I believe $5,000 was raised to donate to this organization. And the synagogue's newsletters have also publicized links to other organizations such as Support for Israel, which provides links to registered not-for-profits and other organizations in Israel, which help in various ways. The synagogue has Israeli flags on display, like many of the synagogues where people made donations to support Israel. We publicize events held by other organizations, such as the local Y, the Celebrate Israel concert, the walks that one of the previous speakers mentioned. Those all get mentioned in our newsletters. We also invited Ira Kohler, the lone soldier who Lori mentioned. We had him as a speaker. And we also had a very well-attended presentation by Dr. Yishai Mishur, who is an Israeli entrepreneur and founder of a company which makes vegetarian protein sources. And I do think that supporting Israel's economy is something that we can certainly, and that we are trying to do from this country. We had a contingent of members who took a bus together and marched in the Israeli Day Parade. We had various discussions, groups, and courses throughout since October 7th about the history of Israel, emotional support meetings, programs relating to the rise of anti-Semitism, and how to be an advocate for Israel and the Jewish people. We looked at how some of the countries in Europe are dealing with these issues and spoke with our local New York State assemblymen. And although not strictly related to the other things, many of us patronize a local restaurant called the Golden Dolphin Diner in Huntington, which supports Israel. The restaurant has pictures of all the hostages in its windows. It flies Israeli flags outside the restaurant. So we support this restaurant and would urge others to do that as well. And in conclusion, please be assured that we support you. I appreciated your very moving stories, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jenny, for your words and for all of the different work that Melville has done. And lastly, I'd like to introduce Lauren Pollock, the co-president of Midway Jewish Center in Syosset, my home shul, and she will share what we've been doing. Thank you so much, Lauren.
Hi, everyone. I am so proud to be the co-president of our Midway Sisterhood, along with Grace Schessler, who's on the call, and always with the support of Terry, who is just such an inspiration to all of us. I am especially touched by the children's book that was created. I'm a first grade teacher, and resources like that are just absolutely incredible. And if there are ways that we can support that, I would love to chat with you further. At Midway Jewish Center, we are especially touched, aside from just being proud and caring Jews, but Omer Nutra, one of the hostages, is a member of our synagogue. And our amazing rabbi and cantor and lay leadership have really come together to offer so many ways for our congregation to show their support through communication, prayer, action, and ways that we can steer our financial and personal resources. So just in terms of communication, our rabbi has set up several WhatsApp groups, one entitled Bring Omer Home, where members of our congregation and just community at large can learn about ways to be supportive, attend rallies. One of our members also constantly updates us on things that the Nutras are doing in terms of meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu, with our president, with our Senate, in DC, speaking at the different conventions. He has a college connections group for parents such as me who have children in college who are facing some of the anti-Semitic protests on a semi-regular basis. In our synagogue, we have added Psalms for the safety of Israel, the IDF, and the hostages. We have added Achenu to our services. And we have a chair on the bima for Omer, awaiting his return, God willing. We've had many missions, and our rabbi led a mission. Our congregants have gone to support Israel. And this is in no particular order. We have had campaigns to support our local food pantries with they call it a blue and white campaign with Israeli products. We have had buses to bring our congregants to rallies in DC and Albany to support the Nutras, to support Israel. Every Sunday, just like in East Meadow, we have something called Run for Our Lives, where they started a local supermarket and they walk to sorry about the bells, I don't know how to shut that off. And they walk to the Jewish Community Center, which is about a mile every Sunday. And usually our rabbi speaks. They have different people from time to time, and they wear shirts that say Bring Omer Home. They're dressed in flags. In fact, many of the telephone poles along the route have signs of the hostages. And when they arrive at the Jewish Community Center, there is a wall of hostages, their photos, and whether they are still being kept, if they have passed, and what their status is. We have that same wall leading to our synagogue at Midway. And when you're there for services, you can see everyone as they walk, they stop, they read, they look. On the opposite end of that wall, we have our crochet club who have knit yellow ribbons. So when you first walk into our synagogue, that's what you are greeted with, as well as a table with lots of signs and posters and ways to support Israel, to support how to bring Omer home, and communication about reminding everyone that our hostages are still being held, which is just unbelievable. Ira Kohler has also, who is a member of our synagogue, has also come and spoke. He's spoken all throughout our local area. We've also, our synagogue has supported local rallies and bringing in local legislators, talking about how they are supporting Israel and what can be done from their end. Our sisterhood, I'm especially proud of. We have also had many programs where where funds have been raised through tzedakah boxes, through donations to support the IDF. Every year we have an event called the Taste of Israel, where we just try to highlight, something special that's going on maybe in Israel. In the past years, we've given to different charities there. Last year, our proceeds went to the IDF, and we had a presentation from the FIDF. And we also invite Israeli Wine Direct to come and sell their wines for Pesach. And that's just something that we can do to help support the Israeli economy, which I know needs us badly. We have security planters that our sisterhood maintains around the outside of our synagogue, which Terry really has taken charge of, and they are gorgeous. And they have planted extra yellow flowers this year and lots of blue ribbons. And another thing that one of our synagogue board members is a part of is something called Project 24, Project Thanks for Giving, but it's affiliated with an organization called Project 24, where they're looking to bring Israeli families from Kibbutz Sufa over for a week of learning and support in our local communities. And Terry and Grace, if I have forgotten anything, please jump in.
Lauren, thank you so much. Was there anything else before I jump?
No, just that know that at Midway and in our local area, whether it's through Midway or other synagogues, Israel is always at the forefront of our minds and what we do.
Thank you so much for all you said. I just want to add that at the beginning of the war, we had blue ribbons on the entrance fence to our shul. And soon after, we switched to yellow ribbons. And so the entrance fence is lined with yellow ribbons. Thank you so much to each of the speakers for taking the time to share with us what we do to keep Israel in our minds and in the forefront of our lives.
Carrie, I
Sorry.
just want to add that mine is in my IDF, my dog tags are in the car right now, but almost everywhere you go, yeah, Terry is wearing them. Yeah. Right now I have the Torah fund pin on. Am Yisrael Chai is obviously our theme this year, our Torah fund theme, which nobody mentioned yet. But the dog tags is a ubiquitous symbol everywhere you look, and we're proud that it shows that we are supporting you. And I think the most touching story comes from somebody. Lauren, you want to share this story?
No, go right ahead. The story.
Yeah, I don't want to mess it up. I think you know it better than I do, but.
So Grace and I were hosting, our sisterhood had a program with an author. It was our membership, paid up membership brunch. And this guy from Bagel Boss, a kosher chain of bagel stores and deli, etc., was delivering the food. Came in a white van, playing Israeli music, wearing his dog tags, wearing another necklace. Regular guy delivering the food, saw that we were wearing our dog tags and said to us, "I have a story for you." And he said, "I was working the counter and this woman said to me, after my order, I'd like to speak to you." And he was like, "Oh, what now? I'm busy. I'm on the counter." And the woman went up to him after and said, "I just want to tell you, I'm an Israeli soldier and we think you wearing these, you are our heroes." And the man, I don't know, had to be in his 60s, so touched, said, "No, you are our heroes." And as he's telling Grace and I this story, he's tearing up. And it just goes everywhere you go. This is a symbol of just support for Israel and how much everyone is always thinking of our soldiers and just Israel in general.
Thank you so much, Lauren and Grace. So I wanted to introduce Grace earlier, and I didn't do that. As Lauren mentioned, she's our co-president of the Sisterhood at Midway Jewish Center in Syosset. She's also our region BQLI publicity and social media co-chair, as well as the Women's League for Conservative Judaism Personal Conversations co-chair. And she was monitoring our chat for us. Were there any questions that we haven't yet answered, Grace?
I don't believe so. I think people were kind of so.
Rena, I think Rena had
intrigued.
something. Did you want to say, Rena?
I have a question for you guys, because I know it's hard for us here for different reasons, but with all the very public displays that you're describing there, are you getting pushback from people who are not so pro us? Or do you live in a place where that doesn't happen? Tell me more about that if you could.
I will just speak to that for 1 second. You and Terry's at my home all the time, as is Lauren. My whole front is covered with "We Stand with Israel, Bring Omer Home," all different signs. Oh, you don't have to highlight me, but I walk the neighborhood a lot with my husband, and they too are very ubiquitous. The lawn signs. I think that especially coming from a Jewish area as we are here on Long Island and Queens, I don't think that, I'll speak for myself, we don't have fear of people doing anything anti-Semitic, but there have been incidents that I'm not going to give details of, and people report it, and then they put their signs back up again, because we will not be deterred. We are proud to stand with Israel, not just as what I consider our homeland, but also because we are Jews, and no matter what your political stance is, we have to stay together as Jews, because that's the only way we lose if we're torn apart. So yeah, you see it everywhere. In fact, I went to get a new lawn sign the other day because mine was getting too faded, and they ran out at the Y, and they have another batch coming in. So I don't think people are intimidated. I think they're going to keep putting their signs up. That's my experience.
I'm just going to add on to what Grace was saying. I think we are very lucky to live in a community that is extremely supportive of Israel, but we are also always mindful that not everybody does. I was on the phone with my best friend who's Jewish from college, who was on her way to her friend's house because her son was beat up at the University of Michigan because he was overheard talking to his friends that, oh yeah, I'm going home for Rosh Hashanah, are you? So we are very mindful of the anti-Semitism that is everywhere, but very lucky and proud to live in a community where being proud to be Jewish is something that many of us share.
Thank you, Lauren and Grace. A final thank you from me with some information for you. Rabbi Margie Sella, who is our Women's League for Conservative Judaism educator, also a member of North Shore Jewish Center, Cheryl Roberts spoke, is starting a 3-part series called Shichot Bein Ayachot, Conversations Between Sisters. The program is designed to foster a deeper mutual understanding between the members of WLCJ in North America and the Masorti women from Israel. It says it's designed to address the question, how are we the same and how are we different? The theme of this year's program is no matter where we live, our hearts are in Israel. I think you've heard that from us today. The 3 sessions will each concentrate on one specific aspect of the important connections that we have with the land of Israel, and will include presentations from speakers from both sides of the Atlantic. Each workshop will also include an opportunity for all attendees to become part of the conversation. WLCJ women can register through the website, wlcj.org, and the women in Israel can register through the online flyer. We are not alone. Thank you so much. We look forward to more joint programs in the future. And we will end with Hatikva and my personal gratitude and thanks to everyone who assisted with this program, who was comfortable and able to speak, and who shared their personal stories. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you so much.
Kehillah is going to share a version of Hatikva that was from Israel last night, you said? You're muted, sorry.
Were you able to hear it playing just now?
No.
No? Okay, I need to optimize my share screen. Okay.
Thank you so much, Kehillah. Our wish is for a peaceful day and good news for all of Israel in the future. Thank you so much to everyone.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
What a
Be
wonderful
well.
program.
Thanks.
Thank you. Wishing you all
Yes.
Shana Tova.
Wonderful
Shana Tova.
program. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for
Wonderful
hosting
program.
us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Beginning of many new programs that you will all do together. It's really people and so many things to share, and I hope we'll be able to share good news.
Amen.
Thank you. Wonderful program.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lavana.
Shavua Tov.
Shavua Tov, Shana Tova.
Shavua Tov, Shana Tova, baby.
Thank you, Anne.